There we go. Well, good morning, everyone. I hope that you're doing well. I think it's good morning on the West Coast and good afternoon if you're on the East Coast. Can we all see a big wave from our Wake Foresters? Can I see your waves? All right, that's good. Looks like those of you on the West Coast are awake, and those of you on the East Coast are like, we've been awake, my goodness. A big welcome to all of you. It's so good to see you today. Boy, do we miss having you on campus. This has been quite an unusual time, and I hope that you are all doing well and making the best of this unprecedented and very challenging time. My name is Mercy Yadiel, and I oversee our career development team at the business school and also our employer relations team for the university. And I'm very excited to be with all of you today. And like you, I'm very eager to hear from our alumni, to learn about their career journeys, and to hear what it's like to work at Facebook, or as my mother would say, the Facebook. I'm like, no, Mom, it's just Facebook, but she insists on it's the Facebook. Before we get started, I'd like to share a couple of quick reminders. It would be helpful if we could see your faces, provided that your camera or video appropriate. I know our panelists will appreciate seeing your smiling faces and showing them some Deacon love. So if you can show us your video, that'd be great. And we also ask that you mute your mics as well. We'd like to encourage you to use the chat feature as well for your questions, and you can just send those questions as they come to you. And my colleague, Lori Sykes, Lori, can you wave to everybody? Thank you, Lori. We'll be compiling those questions for our panelists. And just a quick note about Lori, she's been instrumental in helping us get today's session organized along with Cynthia Mole. So Lori and Cynthia, thank you for your good work. Lori actually leads a team of our account managers on our employer relations team. Their entire focus is to help Wake Forest students connect with organizations with internships and full-time roles. And so I know Lori, as a parent, she's a parent of a Wake Forest graduate, and she deeply cares about our students' success, and we're very fortunate to have her on the team. And now for the reason that we're all here, which is to hear from our fabulous alumni in their career journeys to Facebook. I'm honored to introduce Matthew Samari. Matthew is a graduate from 2012, and he has worked for several top companies in the world, including Deloitte, Microsoft, and now Facebook. And some pretty cool projects that he's been working on while he's been at these organizations too, which he'll share more about. Matthew, we're eager to learn more about your career journey and also to hear from our other alumni panelists. Allie Price, Eric Knox, and Coleman is on the line too. So we're very excited to have those alumni on our call as well. Thank you very much for your time and for being willing to join us today. Matthew, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can get us started.
Sure. I'll give a quick high-level overview of Facebook because Facebook is a little bit broader, I think, than a lot of people think. And then I'm happy to give a quick career story on myself. Our other panelists are going to go through, and then we want to prioritize as much as possible, leaving time for questions and answering questions you have. We have a fairly diverse panel today in terms of job function. I work in product management. Eric is a engineering manager. We have someone in partnerships. We have someone in content strategy. So these are not just computer science roles, but cross-discipline across the company. So hopefully can answer a broad swath of questions. So when we think about Facebook, I think historically people think about Facebook in terms of its origin story, dorm room, connectivity between Harvard students at the time that expanded over time to all these other colleges and really grew as this product market fit went. The novelty of Facebook, and this really gets core to our mission, is, and this probably seems bizarre to people that weren't there, but at the time, Facebook was the very first time someone put their real identity on the internet. The idea that you would have like who you really are on the internet was a totally foreign concept. Even email addresses were Red Sox fan 590 at hotmail.com, right? It wasn't Matthew Samari at hotmail.com. And so in finding like a way to create trust in use cases and value and like placing your real identity on the internet, what Facebook sort of stumbled upon was this way of connecting people that hadn't prior existed across distance and time, right? Asynchronous communication that wasn't previously possible. And so when you look at Facebook today, that core mission of connection is very much in everything we do, but it is Facebook Blue, as we call it internally, which is like the classic Facebook property, which you guys would probably say like the thing my parents use, which is totally fine. We have Instagram, WhatsApp for our other app surfaces, but then there's enormous investments in infrastructure, just allowing internet connectivity in remote places of the world. We have divisions focused on connectivity in the next wave of computing. So investments in augmented reality and virtual reality. That's where Eric and I both currently work. And so it's a very expansive company, a very expansive set of investments that are really interesting. But largely it's on this core theme of connection. And that's the thing we all care about at the end of the day. So for career stories, I'm happy to quickly talk about myself, and then I'm going to pass it around to Allie, Coleman, and then Eric. So for myself, I graduated from Wake Forest in 2012. I am married to a fellow Wake Forest 2012 graduate. We actually have a baby now, so it's really funny to look at college photos and be like, guess this thing worked out. So she works at Google. We are the double tech couple that Seattle both loves and hates at the same time. So we currently live in Seattle. After Wake, I graduated and went to Deloitte. I worked in management consulting for a year. I enjoyed that, although I found myself really missing building things. So I got an opportunity to go work on the Xbox team at Microsoft. That's what brought my wife and I to Seattle for the first time. I spent about 4 years at Microsoft working in a variety of ways, but originally shipping the first version of the Xbox One, building out that product, and then moving on and working on the Xbox Connect. So that's where I started working in more of these like augmented reality, AI, computer vision type things for the computer science students in the room. I decided I really missed shipping things at scale. I wanted to do something bigger. So when I came to Facebook, I actually originally was working with Instagram. And the problem we were trying to solve at the time was we had this really interesting trend where for people under the age of 20, so Western US teens, 13 to 19, people were deleting their Instagram posts at 37% within 24 hours after they posted it, which was a really large problem. So people were like posting something and then massively deleting it. And we were trying to figure out why and was there a way to solve that problem. What we realized over time is there was this economy of likes and comments. So if you posted a photo and didn't get enough like fire emojis, oh my God, you're so beautiful, like whatever comments within 15 minutes, all of a sudden it created like this weird bubble of social anxiety and people started taking down their media. And so the problem I came on the team to help solve is how do you create depressurized sharing? How do you encourage people to share their point of view, start a conversation without an economy of feedback that like forces them to keep going? So that's when we introduced stories. I was the product manager for the camera features within Instagram at the time. So if you've ever used Boomerang, that was me back in the day. And then since then, I've moved on and I'm now working with Eric on far, far future things. We're working on future product lines and augmented reality and trying to think about how we bridge the next wave of computing to Facebook and different levels of connectivity. So a bunch of different experiences. I've been blessed to have a really fun career and I'm excited to answer any of your questions. So with that, I will go ahead and pass it to Allie next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Allie Price. I graduated from Wake back in 2008. I was actually, funnily enough, at Wake as a freshman right when Facebook came to the campus for the first time. So the way that Facebook kind of rolled out initially was campus by campus. And Wake was early, like in colleges, to actually get access to Facebook. So that was like a very different time. We all had our ThinkPads and still had like the old school flip phones. So this maybe makes me like a little bit of a dinosaur. Anyways, when I was at Wake, I studied communication and studio art and I spent a bunch of time like in the summers in Kenya. I got really interested in microfinance and spent some time working with micro lending groups in rural Kenya. And then I set up a jewelry company employing women in rural Kenya to make this jewelry that I then sold at Wake and at boutiques in Winston, and worked with some CS students to build a website and sold it online too. So that was kind of a big part of my time at Wake, was building this this kind of small business. And because of that, I spent a lot of time with the entrepreneurship department and ended up taking a lot of classes there. After I graduated in 2008, I did a year-long fellowship in entrepreneurship at Wake. So I stuck around and took MBA classes, took classes in entrepreneurship, and then spent a good chunk of my time in Kenya continuing to build this business up. And when I finished that, was kind of itching for a change, and I'd been really interested in kind of technology and in international development. So I ended up moving to San Francisco to work for a nonprofit called Kiva. Kiva does person-to-person micro lending online. So allows you to go onto the website and lend $25 to a shop owner in Cambodia. And then as they repay their loan, you get paid back. It's a really cool model of kind of using technology and crowdfunding to do a lot of good in the world. So I spent about 3.5 years there, working mostly in like content and support, and kind of thinking about how we communicate what we're doing to the lenders who are using Kiva pretty regularly. So doing some kind of like user experience related stuff, though at the time I don't think I would have even called it user experience. I then left Kiva, worked on an e-commerce startup for a while with another fellow Wake grad, and then moved on to Google, and then a few years later Facebook, but was always really doing a lot of like storytelling content. And what I do now is I'm a content strategy manager at Facebook. My team is focused on thinking about emerging markets. So one of the teams that I support is focused on India, and thinking specifically about how people are using our products in India, what specific problems they're having, and what we can do to build kind of tools and products for them that work to enhance their experience and make sure that they're able to use Facebook and our other products well. I work with another team that's really focused on women in emerging markets. So there are like specific problems related to how women interact on Facebook and how they're able to use Facebook and our other tools in emerging markets. A lot of it is kind of privacy related and safety related. So we're working on kind of understanding those problems and thinking through them and testing solutions there. And then another team that I support is the Facebook connectivity team. So they're really focused on expanding access to internet and bringing more people online. So we're doing all sorts of things, like we are doing work to expand the grid, both in urban areas and rural areas, doing a lot of work with like operators and telcos, like the big companies that are building this infrastructure, to make sure that we're like serving them well and partnering with them well. So it's really like kind of heavy on partnerships, but a lot of like really interesting projects too. And I'll speak a little bit about what content strategy is as a discipline.
Hey,
Content
Allie,
strategy.
excuse me, before you go there, maybe we could give Coleman and Eric a chance to introduce
sure.
themselves. And then I know that Matthew has some specific questions, but thank you so much. That was
Okay,
terrific.
great.
So let's go to Coleman next.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mercy. And it's always so cool, like hearing other people from my own company and just kind of what they do, because I feel like Matt said in the beginning, it's so big. There's just so many things that we deal with. It's incredible just to hear from everybody. So I'm totally honored just to be here and talk with everyone today. My name is Coleman Craddock Willis, and I got to Wake. So I actually transferred from Berklee College of Music in Boston to Wake during my sophomore year. I'm a pianist by trade, but moved down to North Carolina to Wake because I thought, I had these big dreams of I'm going to go to the business school and I'm going to be like this finance guy because who could deal with all these student loans? And so I had this whole grand plan. And then I think I took the intro to economics and I think I got less than a stellar grade. So I I pivoted and I started majoring in history and I took a lot of entrepreneurship classes as well and then ended up minoring in entrepreneurship. And so I think the question I got the most when I was at Wake was like, what are you going to do with the history degree? Because like, are you going to be a teacher or like, what are you going to do? And I didn't want to be a teacher. And so I kind of kept thinking about, all right, how do I parlay this into something that will be beneficial to different companies that I really enjoyed? And I think when I thought about different companies that I liked, I like to think about it from like a service base, like what is a company doing from a utility standpoint? And how can I be a part of that? And how can my history degree, knowing about sort of what happened in the past, inform these companies for the better? And so I sort of came up with this concept like applied history. And my concentration at Wake in history was like early American Republic itself. And so I sort of started thinking about, well, how is like, the development of a country similar to the development of a business? And so I really started to structure kind of my quote unquote expertise in that type of field itself. And so I ended up, and I still sort of did a lot of, I guess, side research on finance and money stuff because I kept thinking, well, how am I going to, leave Wake and be able to pay these student loans off? And so I ended up getting an internship in New York on Wall Street, just taking like these tutorials on YouTube just about finance and things like that and learned a lot, which was fantastic. After that internship, I got an offer from Bloomberg to go work in their analytics department. And so kind of entering senior year, I felt really good. I had a job, I was feeling really nice. And then kind of this, I think it was this pop-up from like ZipRecruiter or something came up about a university grad position at Facebook working on the sales and marketing side. And I thought, why not just kind of throw my hat in the ring and apply for it. Ended up applying. And as soon as I came out to the Austin, Texas Facebook office, it was just so much more my style. I mean, I think everyone I was interviewing with was like wearing shorts and it was just such a very laid back, fun environment to be around. And so I ended up getting that job at Facebook and I took it right out of school. So I think I might be the only panelist. I've been at Facebook. It's going to be 4 years in August, but Facebook's the only thing I've ever known. And I think being a new grad at Facebook was a really interesting position just to take everything in. But currently I work as a client solutions manager on the entertainment sales team here. So I work directly with NBC Universal and helping them do their advertising and marketing on Facebook and Instagram. And currently right now they're launching a streaming service called Peacock this July. And so I'm on this launch team to help them get that out to the people. And so once that drops, I hope everyone subscribes. But it's a lot of fun. I mean, I'm totally here to answer any questions just about what it's like if you want to try to go directly from college into tech, it can be, a heavy lift for some. And I wish I did it differently sometimes, but it's paid off in a lot of big ways too. So with that, I'll pass it to Eric.
Right.
Good morning. So my name is Eric Knox. I'm not a Wake Forest graduate, although I'm looking forward to attending graduation next year because my son is, Andrew, on the call as a junior at Wake Forest. So super excited to be here. But I graduated from Virginia Tech. I actually had my internship during college was in computer science, doing some real-time programming stuff. I got hired by Microsoft out of college. I graduated thinking I would build video games because that's kind of what I was into. Microsoft came along, offered me a job on Microsoft Access. And I'm like, what is this relational data thing? And so I had to make some choices. I actually took it and I'm super glad I did because I realized that when I graduated, I had my mind focused on one thing. This great opportunity was there that was different. It took me in a completely different direction. And my 20 plus years at Microsoft before coming to Facebook were all focused on enabling developers. Starting from relational data into programming languages. There were a few years developer consultant in there where I went and actually helped people or organizations that bought Microsoft software figure out how to use it, how to construct their own applications and deliver them internally. I still remember going to the FDIC and figuring out their bank examiner role and just kind of like learning what it is they did and how their IT department helped their bank examiners using Microsoft technology. So it was a cool understanding the customer, seeing the technology and helping build that bridge between the two. And that's what supporting developers over the years has meant to me. And it was really great to get that customer experience firsthand and see all the warts and problems with existing technologies and things that we had to work around, because every time I've built a solution, it had to fit within the constraints of what was out there. Some good, some not so good. And that focus on developers led me to programming languages and developer environments. And I don't know how many of you are on the call on computer science, but those of you that use, C#, VB, and F#, like those are the languages that my team and I built for a number of years in there. So that was a ton of fun for me to understand the world as a developer and build products for developers. And that's really what brought me to Facebook. I'd been doing that kind of thing for a number of years. The idea of being able to do that in the next wave of computing, virtual reality and augmented reality, was just too good to pass up. And so, like Matt said, he and I work reasonably closely together. And at this point, my job is bringing all this new stuff, computer vision, what does it mean to build an application? I love watching Hollywood and looking at Westworld just this past weekend, thinking our glasses aren't going to be quite that small, quite that fast just yet, but you can see the evolution. And so it's great to be able to see technology in real use. And for me, that's what it's all about, is taking that technology, finding a problem, and being able to empower people to bridge that gap and solve them.
That's great. Matthew, I was just thinking while I was listening to the panelists and also acknowledging that many of the students on the call today have a wide range of majors and focus areas. And so I was just wondering if, I think that a couple of you did mention what your majors were, but Matthew, what was your major? I think you were a double major, right?
I double majored in computer science, and back when they called it political science. I think it's changed.
Okay, and then Coleman, I think you said you were computer science, and then, or no, you weren't. You were. You thought you were going to be finance, right?
Yeah.
And then what did you end up with?
History.
History. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an interesting story. I like that. And then Allie, you said were you in arts?
I was communications and studio art double major.
Arts. Okay, fantastic. And then Eric, you were in computer science as well, right?
Yeah, computer engineering. So half a little bit on the hardware focus as well.
Okay, so that's just good for our students to be aware of what your backgrounds were. And then Matthew, I know you've got some other questions, but really quickly, how important is your major as you think about potential opportunities with Facebook? Do you all like to hire folks from different backgrounds, or how does that really work?
I can jump on this, and then anyone else feel free. And by the way, if folks do have questions, just start populating the chat. I think the two we were going to address proactively is this one, as well as just how to think about finding jobs and internships amongst COVID, because that's a big topic. So we'll talk about both of those. But just in terms of major, multidisciplinary backgrounds, I think, are really, really important. I think they make the best teams. That isn't just like lip service. Diversity matters in all elements, in the traditional senses that we talk about it, but also in terms of like what you studied, what you've done. I have people on the team I support. One of them was a wedding photographer for 5 years. Now he's a product manager at Facebook. I have people that I support that have worked in the military, that have done all sorts of different things. So diversity is welcome in all aspects. I actually think it makes teams better. The impetus, I would say, to think about in terms of, say you have a non-traditional major for a particular job function, is the impetus becomes on you to connect the dots to the employer in terms of how your role connects to the job. So for example, my wife majored in art history at Wake Forest. When she started her career at Amazon in a marketing role, and literally sold them the craziest story you have ever seen about how art our artists were the original marketers, and like this is how you can think about our history as actually being a conduit to marketing, and why her skill sets apply even though she doesn't have a traditional like business background. And the hiring manager was like, this is the craziest thing I've ever heard, but like good on you. It's a reasonable argument. Like you got the job. So like, that's kind of the thing you have to do. People will not connect the dots for you. But if you can connect the dots, like I think you can really find the way in. Allie, Coleman, Eric, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'll say as a hiring manager, there's a tremendous amount of tell me how your experience matters and will help you. I believe quite often a degree gets you past a certain amount of interest, inspection. I usually like to think of that as getting, past the recruiter. Once you're actually in your interview or in the team, it is exactly like Matt said. I need to have confidence that if I were to hire you onto my team, that would be good for all of us. And I absolutely love different perspectives, different experiences, different background, but you do have to have some relevance, right? You have to connect those dots for me when it's not a clear, straight shot.
Great. Allie or Coleman, anything additional?
Yeah. Or Allie, do you want to go?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
That's
Yeah, I
so
think.
Wake Forest, by the way. That's so Wake Forest, what you just
Oh.
did. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I love it. I think Matt hit it right on the head. I mean, I think it's just about how you tell a story. Like I remember one of our leaders talked a ton about being like a romance languages major, and like using that to talk about just communication and how the people who communicate the best are usually the best to get things done, and to understand or have everyone else understand their role kind of in a greater company or just project. And so I think it's truly about what you see your strengths are apart from the major itself, and just connecting that and making it work.
That's great. Allie?
Yeah, I think just one thing to add to what everyone else has said is I think majors kind of connecting that story is the most important when you get your first job, and then after that, people tend to look more at experience than at your major and your performance in school. So that's something to keep in mind too, is like kind of how to make that first link, and then beyond that, really focusing on kind of the work experience that will bridge you. And I think even without a job, you can focus on that in like side projects that you're doing, things that you're studying. Like for me, for example, I was really interested in entrepreneurship. I didn't have it officially on like a minor or anything, but used that a lot in storytelling when I was looking for my first job.
What I think is interesting about what all of you shared is you focused on experience and storytelling and bridging the connection for your potential employer, in this case for Facebook. So if you've got a set of experience, it's on you to demonstrate that relevance and the importance of that experience and how that can play out and benefit the organization, is what I'm hearing. So that's great. Lori, is the question that you received related to internships or hiring, or should we wait to ask that question?
It is. Maddie, you want to raise your hand so everybody can see you? Maddie has a question. What kind of career paths are available for new grads in software engineering? And how is it easy is it to move into something like project management or something similar? And that's an open question.
Eric, do you want to take the first part of that and I can take the second part?
Yeah, great. So many companies, Facebook included, hire plenty of college graduates. All of these companies both of the companies that I've worked for and many that I've heard about through others, focus on bringing in talent, right? We recognize that the tech industry is not a join once, stay there forever. And so crafting a pipeline where new talent of every level can come in, whether it's college grad or 25-year experienced industry veteran can join a team. Facebook's really good about what we call boot camp. You get hired, you go to boot camp, you learn a lot about the company. You get to hack with a bunch of different teams and sort of getting that experience of what individual teams are like. And it is a program that's well crafted for if you demonstrate you have, the tech background to make it in the door. You get your choice of teams, and the team has to choose you as well, right? You have to find that match. But there's a process that really is all about onboarding you, teaching you what it's like to be here, and giving you the opportunity to learn. And then once you're in, yes, Facebook's great about career mobility. And so I think that's probably a good one for Matt to pick up and talk about transitioning to product management.
Yeah, and the one, if you're not familiar with like the roles within an engineering team, you can think about like there's a bunch of disciplines, right? And I think we actually have a wide range represented here. What I do is called product management. So you can essentially think I'm held accountable for like the why and the what of a given product. So like, why are we building this and what are we building? So establishing goals, understanding like what success looks like, and working with like design and whomever to actually like craft what the thing is we're actually going to go build. There's obviously like the engineering team, which is our largest discipline, that actually like does the work of arguing with me about like, I don't actually want to go build that thing. And I'm like, no, but it's a really good idea. And so it's this very interesting, healthy tension. Like design team, which can be vast array of disciplines. It covers everything from content strategy, which Ali can talk more about, to user research. There's a wide array of buckets in there. We have data scientists. There's the partnership side, which Coleman has talked about, which is a lot indexing on sort of our relationships with other companies or the things to get these products out. So I would say like I can probably list a million other disciplines. If I had other disciplines on this call, I would make sure to mention them so they knew. But there's a lot of different roles, I think is my point. And transitioning between them, again, it comes back to our prior statement. It's around like crafting the narrative and what relative experiences have you had that would set you up for success in that role.
Lori's going to go ahead and ask one more question.
Yeah, that's great. So Liz, you want to raise your hand? Hi, Liz. Liz wants to know what makes Facebook's culture unique from the past companies that you've worked for.
Ellie or Coleman, you guys want to take this one?
Yeah, I can speak to this one. Oh, sorry, Coleman.
No, I was going to say, Ali, take it, because I have not worked at any other company.
Yeah, so I have a couple of companies to compare to. One is Google, which you kind of think about similarly. I would say like everybody's experience is fairly unique. Like, and the experience that I had at Google versus Facebook is probably different than the experience that someone else might have. But for me, comparing the two, they're both obviously like big names in tech. At the time when I joined Facebook, we were about 11 or 12,000. And Google, when I left, was already at like 50,000 employees. And so Facebook did feel a lot smaller and scrappier. I think Google felt a little bit more hierarchical, where Facebook was still kind of holding on to this like startup mindset of move fast. And I think we've still been able to hold on to that. I've been at the company for about 4.5 years, and it's grown tremendously over that time in terms of just like full-time employee headcount, contractor headcount. But I do, sorry, my 1-year-old son is waving to me. I do think that we've held on to that kind of like early stage startup mindset. The other piece of Facebook's culture that I really appreciate is that it's very people focused. All of our products are really focused on people and connect that in the company culture too, quite a bit.
The one thing I'd add on to this, and like I think this is where like Facebook is really, really special. We had, for example, there was a review I had 2 weeks ago with like CEO of our company, so with Mark Zuckerberg, and there is a woman on my team who is 2 years out of college who has been like the main driving force on the project we're working on. And so throughout our whole management chain, it was like, oh, she's going to present the work to Mark. That does not happen in any other company. There is no other company where like a whole stream of like leadership team like sits back and is like, let's have the most junior person in the room like represent their own work to the CEO. But at Facebook, like it's very bottoms up culture, and like things you own, like you own the story of. So she's sitting in a room where like my manager was the first product manager for YouTube. The engineering leader who started Echo at Amazon is in the room. Eric Skip Level Ficus, who dropped out of high school to start Android, is in the room. Like all of these people who are like brilliant in their own field, plus like Mark Zuckerberg are sitting there, and there's a 24-year-old presenting to him on this idea that she had been driving, and like she gets to own that message. Like that really will not happen anywhere else. Like it is very, very unique to this company. And that's why I stay and I love it.
That's great. Really quickly, Colin, were you going to answer anything about this too, or was there?
I don't think so,
You
but
don't have to.
Matt,
I just wanted to make sure I gave you that moment if you were going to ask.
oh, yeah, no, thank you.
Okay.
I didn't have anything to say.
Okay. You have a lot to say, just maybe not on that topic. Okay. Really quickly, because I think this, and I was just kind of scanning the chat, and Matthew, I do think this would be good for you, and really the other panelists too. As you think about product management, were there particular tools or resources or tools that you had learned in particular that you would recommend to students? And then for the rest of the panelists, if there are other tools or key skills, because again, just think about the fact that our students are trying to figure out how do they best prepare. What are some unique things that could help to differentiate them in this process? Especially if they're not able to get an internship right now, or even if they're seniors graduating, or if they're in graduate school. So what are some essential tools specifically for product management that then in your other areas too that you would recommend students get up to speed on? Go ahead, Matthew.
Yeah, I can speak generally about this, and then I think I'd love to hear what the other panelists have to say, just in terms of like what skills they learned at Wake or after Wake that would be valuable. I think the one lesson I take away from Wake is, and this is actually less to do with any specific discipline and more about the liberal arts education, is how to craft a concise and articulate argument. And you'd be surprised how important that is. Being able to take like a bunch of complex inputs, create a framework around it, and say like, this is an argument I'm making that's logically consistent and complete. I did that for 4 years in the political science department. It had literally nothing to do with product management or tech or products or engineering, but it's like a way of thinking you learn at Wake Forest. And if anyone has ever gotten an A on any of those essays, congratulations. That means you outworked yourself to the bone, because I know how difficult that is at Wake Forest, so good on you. But like that skill of just being able to like take something, condense it down to its like most important assets, and like reasonably articulate back, like this is what I believe to be true, or the thing we should go do, or whatever. It's not necessarily about product management or anything. Like that is a superpower. Like you can ride your entire career on that and literally do anything. And it's just like, that is the person that understands how to solve complex problems. And so like, that is the skill to take away, because it's malleable and you can do that in any job function. It's not specific to a job function. So that's where, when I look back on my time at Wake, it's sort of like training my brain in that way. And I cannot overemphasize how important that skill is. Like again, maybe Coleman, I'll pass this one to you. Any experiences you've taken from Wake that have been really important? We can go around.
Yeah, I mean, I think Matt, you definitely hit that on the head, man. I think, and I'm just thinking about like, I mean, my history major, I spent so much time selling my ideas to my professor about why I think this is correct, and being able to formulate that and kind of put that in whatever setting I was in was super crucial, just to understand logic and how to sell things in that way. I think another piece when I think about like skills, or just like even like an attitude, I think, of just securing a job like this, there's so much in just being proactive, prepared, and clear. Like I have to say, everybody that's, I think, at Facebook has a lot of those qualities. And so if you're a student and you're thinking about, well, how can I, get a job at a company like Facebook? I think being proactive, prepared, and clear with whoever is in those different positions, people sense that. And I think most of the time you're rewarded for that. And I think it's just skills for life. If that's in your class or whatever else. That's such, an ability and a habit that I think has served people so well. And the people who I look up to within Facebook are that way, to a point that just no one else can sort of touch them. And so that's always been my piece of advice, and just to talk to as many people as possible, but definitely hone those skills as much as possible, because people see that and people respect that. So yeah, I can pass it to Ali or Eric.
Excellent. Thank
Yeah, I can jump in. I noticed that somebody on the chat is a studio art major, and I'll speak to my experience there.
you. Thank you.
So I work in content strategy within the design team at Facebook. And the work that I did in critique in studio art was really helpful, and is something or a practice that we use a lot at Facebook. So a lot of our work within design is like early explorations, thinking through what experiences might look like, might work, really looking at kind of like inputs that we have from users from research around like what problems they're having, what they want to see and what they want to do. And then we're taking those early stage designs and sharing them with a larger group and giving feedback on them in the same way that we would do in studio art with like paintings or sculptures or like things that we were working on that were in progress. So I think being able to like share observations fearlessly, ask questions, point things out that someone else might not see. Those are all skills that I developed within studio art that have been really helpful in my current role.
Great. Eric, any additional things you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think the one thing that occurs to me is learn how to improve and how to evaluate and how to take a step back and say what's working, what's not working. So it's less about individual check boxes being checked, but get out there, experience things, do some self-evaluation, ask for feedback from outside of yourself. How did that go? What could I have done better? And try to think about how to make improvements, how you would tackle problems differently the next time, how you would manage your time differently the next time, right? That ability to introspect and grow yourself is super important as well. And it's less about an individual, experience in a language or a class or something like that.
Great. I think a lot of what all four of you said, it really does require some experience or some practice in getting the skill mastered, if you will, anything around communications or being able to step back and evaluate, assess, and then to craft, cogent arguments related to that. Are there one or two resources that you've used in your career, specifically a book, a website, something that you would say, well, you should check this out because this will help you? But nothing replaces practice and experience, and we know that, but I'm just curious if you had a response to that. Any books that have influenced you or resources?
It's less about, for me, a specific book, and this may just be my personal learning style. When the Wake students came last year, I gave this same feedback, which is whenever you do like find like that first internship or job, or even at Wake, like professor or whatever, find someone who you respect, who you want to like emulate in some way, and like use them as a partner and just like throwing ideas at. Like I cannot tell you the number of people I have at Facebook who I just like look up to in some way, or they think about problems in a way I don't. And the number of conversations I have on a given week where I'm like, hey, can I just like run something by you for a minute? And I'll like throw it at them. They'll be like, you're a total clown. That makes no sense. Here's everywhere that's broken. And I'll be like, okay, makes sense. I'll be back in a day. And then I come back and they're like, that sounds a lot better. Nothing ever happens that you've done alone. And I think I've I think I've learned early in my career, and I think this may be a bug from Wake Forest. I tried to hero mode too much. I was like, oh, if I just like lock myself in a library long enough, like I can find the solution and like finish this paper. Like real world doesn't work that way. Like you need intellectual partners to like riff ideas off of, and like that will force you to grow. So just like find those people. They don't have to be like someone who has massive amount of experience. You don't have to do like a forced networking. It can even be your peers at Wake right now, and just like fellow students that you respect or think about problems in different ways, who you just like want to bounce ideas off of. Like that is a much more scalable approach than like any single source book or something like that.
Good, very good. Do others have additional perspectives that you want to share? And if not, I'd like for Lori to make sure that we get to some of the specific questions that our students have raised, and I'll ask her to prioritize that. Eric, Allie, or Coleman, any other resources? Don't feel pressure to say anything if you don't, but I just want to make sure, check in.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Cole.
So I think, I mean, I was trying to think about like books that were really powerful for me. I mean, so much is, I think like Matt said, just being around people who you really respect and you want to be like, and just being a sponge and being like super curious, asking a ton of questions, I think is the fastest way to get better and to improve. I think the two books that really stood out, I think a year into my Facebook career, which really made me pivot about how I think about work. One was called Mastery by Robert Greene, who wrote like 48 Laws of Power.
Repeat that one more time. Can you repeat that?
It's called Mastery, and it's by
Mastery.
Robert Greene. And he wrote 48 Laws of Power, which is kind of like a Machiavellian type book. But this other book he wrote is really fantastic in terms of, it's really about leaning into what makes you unique. And when you do that, you can actually master something kind of in a greater way. And that really changed the way I thought about a lot. And then another one was Extreme Ownership, which is just about sort of how you think about taking responsibility for what happens in your life or in your job or in, you know, your school. It's kind of about, you're never blaming anyone, like kind of you're looking in the mirror constantly. And that really changed how I think about working as a team and the results that I get. So that helped me a ton. But just being around, you know, the things that inspire you and the people that inspire you are going to take you to the next level as quickly as possible.
That's right. If Eric, I think you had something too, and then if others of you have, you could please put that in the chat so we can keep moving forward. But Eric, go ahead.
I had just one minor thing to tack on to what Matt and Coleman said, which is that the peers around you, getting that feedback and learning from others is super important. And the hard part is being willing to be wrong, right? To share an idea and have somebody say, that's terrible. Being able to pause, say, tell me why it's terrible, let's make it better, and keep working at it. That perseverance is huge, and it's hard and it's demoralizing, but it's so important to recognize nobody's perfect, but we can get better ideas together.
That's right. One question that I'll go back to, and then Lori, please prioritize her here, is there is a great question around how this COVID experience has impacted the way that you all work. And because you work in tech, has that been easier, or should we not make that assumption? And just a quick reminder, I know Matthew's in Seattle, Coleman, you're in Austin, and I'm not sure where Eric and Allie are. So would love to hear
I'm
where
in
you
San Francisco.
San Francisco, and then
And I'm in
Eric,
Seattle.
Seattle too. Okay, all right. So how is this whole COVID thing? Just how has that been for you all, in terms of your work, and what's that transition been like, and how should students be preparing for this very uncertain world that they're going to be entering into?
I can speak a little bit to Facebook, and then I know Allie graduated in 2008, like entering the recession. I entered Wake Forest in 2008, entering like that recession. So I can give you some experience from like those days. In terms of like how Facebook is coping as a company, like it stinks, but we're okay, right? Like Facebook operates as a giant social network. So if there was any company on the planet equipped to like deal with like everyone working from home simultaneously, I would hope it would be us. And so there are like some inefficiencies, but all meetings are video chat. We have all of the tools to like make asynchronous communication really effective. So I think in terms of just, I've been like pleasantly surprised in terms of like our level of efficiency. There are a lot of pain points. I'm not trying to like oversell, but I think keeping perspective, we've been like relatively okay. The one thing first, I wanted to say like, I am super empathetic and sympathetic for the situation you guys are having to deal with. Like this is not easy. Either entering internships, having internships canceled, trying to like find a job in this environment. Again, I'd love to hear Allie's perspective from '08. I can tell you that I was 3 weeks into college in 2008 when Lehman Brothers collapsed. I had 3 people on my freshman hall that had to drop out of Wake Forest because their parents lost jobs and could no longer afford it. So all internships were pretty much canceled for the next 2 years after that. The way people manage through, and I think this is the like strongest advice I would give to you, is like you don't have to have a company internship to like have gained experience or demonstrated value, right? When someone looks at your resume, they're looking at like demonstration of experience and things you have done, not necessarily like if it has a blue chip company name next to it, like cool, but it's more about like what is the thing. So
That's great.
it's an amazing tool to have a lot of free time over the summer to like go do something interesting. Like even if you like say you're a computer science student, even if you like build an app that 2 people download, who cares? Like you have the experience of like building an application and like going through that whole process of what it takes to engineer it. And like you have something you can show people and like demonstrate a portfolio. So I would just like encourage you to not feel limited by like the existing internship structure not existing in the way it maybe had previously. But that like resilience and grit we talked about previously, like Wake Forest teaches you that. Use it, find ways of like executing and like demonstrating that experience in other ways. Allie, do you have other thoughts on this?
Yeah, so just to add a couple things about what's changed with COVID, I think we've seen a lot of people shifting their focus to various product teams. So like there's a big focus now on remote presence and remote work and thinking about kind of what that looks like. There's a big focus on sharing quality information about coronavirus and stopping misinformation and things like that. So a lot of people have shifted their work there too. In general, I think Facebook, at least right now, knock on wood, is like really well positioned to weather this. We're focused on connecting people and building community, and that's something that can be done remotely. So we're actually seeing people who haven't been using Facebook or haven't been using our other apps regularly coming back online and using them more and in kind of new and creative ways. So that's been cool. Speaking to kind of my experience in 2008, I do remember just being this place where like a lot of people's offers were rescinded, internships were canceled. A lot of people kind of shifted focus and went to grad school. One thing I would encourage you guys to think about is like look for the companies and the industries that might be really like shifting and growing during this time. So anything that's kind of like remote presence related, remote learning, all of a sudden, all of these like ed tech companies that had like kind of nice sized user bases are exploding. So kind of think about where people are spending their time now and where they might continue to spend their time in the next year as we continue to have like some form of this like remote stay at home type of lifestyle and focus on that and looking in those places.
That's great.
And then I'll say one other thing. I never had an internship in college. I was just like focused doing other things that interested me in the summer. And I managed just fine to get a job even during the recession. So you don't have to have like perfect internships every summer either.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Lori, are there maybe 1 or 2 final questions? And then we need to probably wrap because we're really close on time. So go ahead.
Yeah, so several students have asked about particular disciplines as it relates to themselves personally, but I think the bigger picture is, how do our students navigate the network at Facebook? How do you go about getting a job or an internship? And do you have any best practices or recommendations on how to find those new grad opportunities?
Great.
I would like the quick TLDR on this, and I know we're almost at time, is find people to like chat with, like use opportunities like this, but just like try to learn as much as possible and use the alumni network to support you. I have recently looked at our recruiting data, and it's like a hilariously small percent of new hires come from just like applying online, where referrals make up like a large majority of them. So the way I would approach that situation, by the way, this is like how I broke into tech. I spoke to like 22 different like Wake Forest people before I like ever got like a single offer at Microsoft, having like tried to figure out like the right role. And it's just, treat them as opportunities to learn, try to understand like where the different opportunities are and what you're interested in doing. And any Wake Forest alumni you speak with is like rooting for you to be awesome. Like they're rooting for you to ask them thoughtful questions and be insightful, or like be really interested or excited about what we're doing. Cause like, we're really excited about what we're doing. We are massively incentivized to like refer people and like bring in a new swath of talent that Eric just suggested. So again, we're rooting for you to be great. So just like reach out to the network, even if like 1 out of 10 people reply to your comment, like, or reply to a message, like that's actually a pretty decent hit rate. So like have some thick skin on it. But you'll find over time that just being able to like chat with people, hear more about what they do, that's how you're going to be able to get your foot in the door. And I would recommend like the strongest approach.
That's great. Well, unfortunately, we are very close to being out of time. What I will say are a couple of things. We will make sure to go through the chat questions and have Cynthia maybe share what those responses are if we didn't get to those questions today. Thank you to our panelists for their time. Matthew, Coleman, Allie, Eric, we are so grateful and Eric, even though you're not an alum, we're sort of an honorary alum now at Wake Forest, so thank you for your time. We certainly appreciate those unique perspectives and your willingness to make sure your other fellow Deeks are successful. Couple of quick things I just want to remind our students about. We've actually built out a new web page for those of you who are trying to navigate this job search process right now, or internship process. It's opcd.wfu.edu, so I would encourage you to check that out. If you have any feedback for us, please let us know. The other thing that I just want to remind you about is to update your Handshake profile. Things are changing so fast and furious. It's a very fluid situation. If your interests have changed or if you've added a new skill, we'd like to know about that so that we can make sure we're sending you relevant career opportunities. We'll be doing more of these type of sessions in the future, so keep your eye out on our Career Pulse that comes out on Monday or Tuesdays, depending on how much information we have. But we thank you very much. And most importantly, on behalf of my team and to all of you, we hope that you continue to stay safe and well throughout this process. And we can't wait to be with you again in person. Okay, so take good care. Please remember to contact us if you need any help. We have coaches that are also available through virtual coaching as well. So thank you all. Have a great